Where there is love and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance. Where there is patience and humility, there is neither anger nor trouble. Where there is poverty with joy, there's neither grasping nor greed.
One day, he was passing by the church of St. Damien, almost in ruins and abandoned by everyone. Led by the Spirit, he entered to pray, prostrated himself in front of the crucifix, and, touched in an extraordinary way by divine grace, found himself completely changed. While he was so profoundly moved, suddenly the image of the crucified Christ spoke to him from the painting, moving his lips. "Francis," he said, calling him by name, "go repair my house, which, as you see, lies in ruins." Francis, trembling and full of astonishment, straightway started looking for a lamp and some oil, so the holy image would not be without a light. But a bigger light already lit the church and history, that of his time and of times to come. The light of a new evangelical intuition that was to become a life project for thousands of men and women. After the Lord gave me some friars, no one showed me what I had to do. But the same Lord God revealed to me that I had to live according to the Holy Gospel. And I, in just a few words, simply had it put down in writing, and the Pope confirmed it to me. The text of the Proto-Rule that Francis presented to Pope Innocent III for approval has since been lost, though some traces can still be found in the subsequent rules 1221 and 1223. What has not been lost, however, is the grace of the origins, which, 800 years later, is still alive within an order that continues to have in the gospel, in brotherhood, and in the minority its rule of life.
Para un hermano menor, la regla
For a friar minor, the rule is not a collection of rigid regulations
normas rígidas que se han de observar
to always be followed in the same way,
en cualquier lugar,
in all places, and at all times.
un hermano menor.
For a friar minor, the rule is, first and foremost, a way of
La
life,
forma de vida
which consists in living the
en vivir
holy gospel
santo evangelio
of our
de
Lord
nuestro Señor.
Jesus Christ.
Yo creo entonces que Francisco,
And the gospel is not a straitjacket.
se dejó mover
The
por el
gospel
Espíritu,
is an offer of authentic happiness in complete freedom.
una regla
And that is why
todo esté
our rule
prescrito
never becomes
y donde la
outdated.
norma esté por encima de todo.
I believe that Francis, due to the very fact that he let himself be transported by the Spirit, did not want a finite rule. did not want a rule where everything was written down and where regulations were above all else. I believe that Francis, because he was a man inspired by the Spirit of the Lord, because he was a free man, a freedom that came from living the gospel to the full, wrote a rule in which, while maintaining constant the essential elements, by means of insight, also keeps them up to date. The Franciscan experience is shared by a family consisting of 3 orders. The first order, to which belong the Friars Minor, the Conventual Friars Minor, and the Capuchin Friars Minor, who live according to the rule written by St. Francis. The second order, to which belong the Poor Clares, who live according to the rule of St. Clare, and the third order, which consists of men and women religious, and of the secular Franciscan order and Franciscan youth, which has many lay adherents. Today, there are over 14,000 Friars Minor in 110 countries of the 5 continents.
La orden está creciendo.
The order is growing in the awareness of the need and urgency to live the essential values of our spirituality.
La orden está trabajando seriamente para
The order is working seriously to regain those elements that represent the essence of the Franciscan charisma.
La orden, sobre todo con motivo de este jubileo de los 800 años.
The order, above all thanks to this 800th anniversary of the approval of the rule, i.e., of the foundation of our order, is working to ensure the realization of the calls which have arrived in these years of run-up to 2009. To focus attention on Him, to concentrate on the essential values of Franciscanism, and decentralize, meaning to travel the world and announce that only He is the Almighty. Let no one be called Friar, but let all be simply called Friars Minor.
La minoridad es el despojamiento total de uno mismo.
The minority is to totally lay naked the self, to leave room in one's life for others.
Por compasión
Not simply for
y por caridad,
compassion,
sino porque dejamos
charity,
espacio al otro,
but also because by leaving room for others,
otro con mayúscula.
I leave room for the other with a capital O, who, being rich, sought poverty, being the first, became the last.
No es una simple opción
And that is
social.
why the minority is not a simple social option.
Es asumir
The minority
hasta las
is to
últimas
acquire,
consecuencias
to the very last consequences,
de que Dios,
the truth
la persona de Jesús,
according to which God, in the person of Jesus Christ, became man
después se
and became
manifiesta
the last.
con la cercanía.
And this in turn becomes manifest through closeness, closeness to the people, closeness to the simple folk, to the poor.
Lo que pedimos al Señor,
This is what we ask the Lord,
ser siempre
like Francis,
frailes, hermanos
to always be friars,
de la gente sencilla,
brothers of the people, of the simple folk,
al lado de un fraile. Nadie sienta,
so that near a friar no one is scared,
sienta la tentación de
no
tomar
one is
precauciones.
tempted to take precautions, because he, she
Un hermano
knows
libremente
that the friar is a brother who has freely joined the minority to be like Christ
asemejarse
and
a
serve
Cristo
his
y
brothers.
servir a los hermanos.
He left the crowd with its noise and sought solitude with its secret and its peace. There, dedicating himself more freely to God. He cleansed from the soul even the smallest grain of dust.
Para mí, la oración es ante todo
Prayer is, first of all, an encounter with God.
saber que Él está y yo estoy. La
It is
oración
knowing that
es
He
diálogo,
is here and I am here.
diálogo de amistad.
Prayer is dialogue,
Estamos cuando oramos
dialogue of
ante un
friendship.
juez. No estamos
When we pray,
ante un extraño,
we are not in front of a
menos
judge,
todavía ante
a
alguien
stranger,
que nos controla.
and certainly not in front of someone who
Ante aquel
controls us.
que nos ama. Estamos ante
Rather,
aquel
we are in front of
que ha
Him
dado su vida por nosotros.
who loves us,
Por eso,
in front of Him who gave His life for
orar
us.
es dialogar.
That is
¿Cómo
why
se dialoga
prayer
con un
is
amigo?
dialogue, like talking to a
San
friend.
Francisco, cuando habla de
St.
la
Francis
oración,
says,
dice que
prayer
es
is keeping your
tener el
heart
corazón
turned towards the
vuelto hacia el
Lord.
Señor. Por tanto, es tener toda la vida
Keeping your whole life turned in the
la
direction of God's plan.
según el proyecto de Dios. La oración es el momento más
For a
hermoso,
believer, prayer is the most beautiful moment
porque la
because
oración
it is in prayer
es
that love becomes manifest.
de amor.
Personal prayer is really the center of it all for me. Like a couple spending that quality time, and if you don't or if you neglect it, the relationship drifts. So I suppose it's the center. It's that those moments of intimacy with the Lord. Sometimes not easily done, or I can find excuses to get away, just to be quiet, to be still. But it makes sense to this life, you know, a prayer being the center, and that being a kind of a dialogue, a speaking and a listening. I think I bring a background of building up community. I think I welcome people from diverse cultures, and people, diversity interests me. It interests me. That's one of the things when I first came to London at 22, which I found attractive about London, the huge diversity and meeting peoples from different races and cultures and socializing. So I like the difference. And I think my previous background in social work before I became a friar helps there in terms of building up and welcoming the different cultures and affirming them and encouraging them to celebrate socially and liturgically.
I feel so lonely in this country for some time, even if I'm staying with my brother. But after coming here, I felt it's like my own home, and I felt like that, and friars are helping me in that way, and to feel more confident and concentrate on my study. Friars help me to pray in a better way. Like, see, before coming here, I just go to church and I will come back home. That's my usual routine. I never mingle with any friar, fathers or priests. Even if I studied in Catholic colleges and schools, that was my daily routine. But after coming here, after meeting priest here, I felt like praying in a more positive way than in a personal way. I felt like praying for everybody, praying for the world or something. Like my outlook changed a lot.
In ancient India, the ashram was the hermitage, which, in the quiet of an unexplored natural landscape, hosted those who dedicated their time to spiritual experiences and meditation. Today, ashram, which could be translated by the word protection, identifies a community dedicated mainly to the spiritual elevation of its members.
This ashram was founded by Friar Dayanand and Friar Skaria, who lived together from 91 till 95. Before that, already Friar Dayanand has been living this life of a Franciscan mendicant from 79, and he had built up contacts especially with the people of other faiths, mainly Hindus. This ashram lives on bhiksha, who give us rice, the farmers around the place. So we have rice for the entire year, sufficient and more. A Jain person and a Hindu person from the market gives us vegetables, and many others support us to have equipments, plates, chairs, fans in the ashram. And so it is completely dependent on the local people, not merely Christians, but mainly Hindus and people of goodwill.
The Bellary ashram community lives a life of prayer and service without money or income. One of its distinctive traits is its readiness to welcome people. Men and women of different religions go to the ashram. They know that they will not receive any money there, but that, whatever their religious belief, they will be listened to, consoled, understood, and given free food.
After my theology, I had spent time with Father Dayanand, going around the villages, trying to reread the gospel, trying to understand the Franciscan life of fraternity and minority from the people's point of view, from the local culture. And thanks to the guidance of Friar Dayanand, I understood that there is a beautiful way to incarnate the Franciscan spirituality after 800 years in this form, where we are open to people, we are dependent on people.
For 30 years, Friar Dayanand has trodden the roads of the Indian continent in his bare feet, bearing the good news of Christ and wearing robes of the same color as the Hindu sannyasins, a color that is a message and sign. Those who wear it are inflamed with God.
My main work has been with people of other faith, interreligious dialogue, and communicating with them. Normally people accept me. Here, being in the south, there is more easily acceptance than sometimes it is harder in the north. I've been using this dress very long period of time, but the church accepts this form of dress. And this is something new in this area because nobody else uses this kind of dress.
In an attempt to incarnate Christ in the land of India, Friar Dayanand has chosen the way of respect for the local culture. Often, during the course of his journey, people ask him for a blessing and a kind word. Through the language of love and freedom of Francis of Assisi, Christianity and Hinduism have met in an authentic dialogue. One day, while he was riding a horse on the plain below Assisi, he met a leper. That unexpected encounter filled him with horror, but considering that if he wanted to become a knight of Christ, he first of all had to win himself, he got off his horse and ran to embrace the leper, and, while the latter held out his hand as if to receive alms, he gave him some money and kissed him. He then got back on the horse, but as much as he looked to see around, he saw the leper no more. Full of wonder, therefore, he began singing devoutly the praise of the Lord. Francis, from when he let himself be touched by the God of compassion, by the Father of compassions, is a man who distributes love and compassion. In this sense, I like to recall the letter he wrote to a minister, in which he affirms and asks the ministers that, however serious the sin committed by a brother, if he asks for compassion, this compassion be granted to him. And if he does not ask for it, that this be offered to him just the same. because what counts is that the brother, and in this sense, the whole of humanity, can experience the love of God, which extends over all creatures.
One of the interesting things is our beginning is really from the St. Francis of Assisi Church breadline, which has been serving meals continuously every day since the Depression. In the course of time in the early 70s, we saw a growing population of people who had been discharged from the hospital, psychiatric hospitals, without the support services they needed. And so what we did was to begin a program that would provide these support services for people so that they didn't have to be homeless, that they could be living in the community well and freely and in a humane and dignified setting. And that is the beginnings of the St. Francis residences. These are residences that are permanent supportive housing for people with serious mental illness. The permanent residence part is that they have these hotels as their home. We invite them to be with us, to stay with us through all their days.
I came to St. Francis in December of '87, and I've been very happy here. I'm here 20 years. They have all kinds of activities for you, art, speaking class, teaching, activities in the movie weekly. We have tenants meetings once a week on Friday, and it gives you the opportunity to share with your fellow peers and also to express any problems if you're having them. So I've been very happy and blessed to be here at St. Francis. I love having the friars around me. There is such camaraderie and friendship from them, and love and concern, and it passes on to each and every one of us.
Many people with chronic psychiatric illness are extremely isolated. When people are homeless, they're paranoid, they're afraid, they're withdrawn, and they experience the world as a very, very dangerous place. St. Francis is a very safe and protective, almost like a cocoon type of environment. Then when they live here, because this place is so stabilizing, they would go for years without hospitalization, and so they would have a chance to develop a personality. Their personality would bloom, and they would show many, many interesting and amazing features that you can't see when someone is at their most ill. So I've had patients over a 12-year period, and it's been wonderful working with them.
Most of our people have schizophrenia or another severe persistent mental disorder. And the reason that most people who have these problems decompensate is because they either have no access to medication, or because of their illness, they are too disorganized to get their medication.
I've been here 3 months and I've enjoyed it. It's been very comfortable, the room is very nice, the people are kind, and staff is very good. And although we don't go to the churches on Sunday, we still feel reverent because we're in the home of a friar instead of out on the streets anywhere in New York. And I'm very grateful for this place. Most likely I'd like to stay here at least another 16, 20 years.
And basically what I do is I make sure that they don't run out of money every month. And by doing that, I put money aside for their bills, for their rent, for any utility bills that they might have. And, you know, some of the people are able to manage their money on their own, but the majority of people who have schizophrenia and mental illness can't. It's part of the reason why they ended up on the streets and ended up homeless.
Our hope is that through this permanent supportive housing, that those who suffer from this serious mental illness can get well and have a full life here in the community, can come and go as they please right here where we are in Chelsea. They have their own key to their rooms, and they really managed their lives as a New Yorker.
More than 10 years have passed since I arrived in China from Korea. And to start with, what I did was go out and travel around to meet lepers. Initially, the group of lepers I managed to put together consisted of 18 people. Now in the leprosarium, we're able to follow more than 100. Another very important aspect of my ministry is assisting the relations of the sick. We are trying to help over 60 children and lots of other family members of lepers. I believe it's crucial to work in the Franciscan spirit, peacefully among the people, without creating conflicts of any kind, without criticizing the government for the lack of attention to lepers in the past, but simply trying to peacefully build something. Thanks to this new cooperation between foreigners and the Chinese government, thanks to this type of mutual understanding, the foundations have been laid for working together on a new initiative, a center for patients suffering from AIDS, close to our leprosarium. Many of my patients call me son. This is the approach they have with me. I believe it depends mainly on the fact that most of them are older than me. When they come near me, they take my hand and talk to me like a son. They treat me as if I were one of their children. In fact, they have the feeling of living in one big family. The Franciscan Center for Social Reintegration provides a welcome for the homeless and people who no longer have any contact with their families. Inspired by Franciscan spirituality, this welcome aims at making these people feel at home. Here at Sao Paulo, they are considered an institution that fights for the human rights and the social rights of those who live on the streets. I'm very happy to work in favor of this center. Our work is inspired. God tells us to do good, to receive good. I feel happy and am honored to help this way. A few years ago, I was appointed by my province to work on 2 social projects. The first concerns the Franciscan Center of Social Reintegration.
Centro Franciscano de Reinserção Social, que abriga
The second is the Hotel San Francesco.
segmento da sociedade.
Both are engaged in assisting the poor and outcast who live in the streets.
Acolhe os moradores de rua da cidade de São Paulo. Isso se dá
Besides concrete help, we provide laboratory training and cultural activities, such as capoeira, music, and theatre.
Música, teatro. We
are also helped by a number of social assistants who work together with the Sao Paulo Social Assistance Network as a whole. Those who turn to us wish to redeem their self-esteem, to free themselves of a difficult condition, and again find themselves a place in society. Thanks to SINH, I have acquired a different view of my problem. And I am not the only one. I have met a lot of other people in my same condition. Within the community, you learn a lot of things you did not know before. For me, it's been very important to meet SINH. I have grown as a person. Until now, I am in a position to teach something to others. I had specialized in gastronomy. Then I became a man of the streets. Here at Recifran, I've been given the chance of a clean and honest job. My work team consists of 35 people. I hope the number will increase, so the financial situation, which is now rather precarious, will improve. Our survival depends on it. If the group grows, the overall situation will improve. I'm very excited about the job I do because it enables me to move ahead day after day. I once lived without any purpose, moving from one place to another. Here, I found a way of earning a living. I only hope it will continue. Brothers, I see that the merciful Lord wants to increase our community. Let us therefore go to our mother, the Holy Roman Church, to let the Pope know what the Lord has started to do through us, so as to continue our mission according to his will and instructions. 800 years later, his testimony of faithfulness and service to the Church continues to mark our pastoral mission in the parishes and in the different ecclesiastical institutions. While he was praying one day, so isolated from the world and completely absorbed in God, in his excess fervor, Jesus Christ appeared, nailed to the cross. On seeing him, he felt his soul melt. The memory of the Passion of Christ was so clearly impressed on his heart. The characteristics of St. Francis were a special veneration and a special love for the crucified Christ. And so, we brothers of St. Francis worship the crucified Christ and try and instill this love in the hearts of the pilgrims who gather here. The Marian sanctuary of the Passion at Kalwaria Dzebridowska was founded in the 17th century by Mikołaj Dzebridowski, who wished to reproduce in Poland the places of the Lord's Passion from the cenacle to the Holy Sepulchre. The friars minor who look after this sanctuary are engaged in ensuring that the worship and veneration of Jesus, who suffered and died for us on the cross, grows and takes root in the hearts of the pilgrims. Our commitment is also expressed through the organization of the so-called Mysteries of the Passion of Jesus Christ. From Palm Sunday until Good Friday at Kalwaria, it is as if the Holy Gospel comes to life. Here we find the figures of Jesus, the 12 apostles, his closest disciples, the Pharisees who followed Jesus and then condemn him and finally take him to Golgotha. Marian devotion resulted in the founder also building evocative chapels dedicated to the life of Mary. The Marian devotion is strongly tied to the miraculous painting of the Mother of God of Kalwaria, brought here in 1641. From that moment, the Madonna of Kalwaria has been widely venerated. In August, during the Feast of the Assumption, over 100,000 pilgrims reach Kalwaria to pray, take part in the funeral procession that follows the coffin in which lies the Mother of God, and in the triumphant procession that follows the image of the Virgin Mary. Being part of the local church also means welcoming anyone who wishes to pray with us and together with us seek God, and does so with the signs, shapes and actions belonging to his/her culture. The Virgin of Zapopan has been in Guadalajara since 1542, the year the city was founded. Popular devotion, which has grown through the centuries, invokes her as the pacifier, the evangelizer, the missionary, because of her presence in the major religious and historical events of the region. On the 12th of October of each year, the day dedicated to the Virgin, a pilgrimage of extraordinary proportions is staged. The friars prepare the statue, made of corn stalks by the native population of the Michoacán region, and dress it up with the traditional clothes and hat of the pilgrim. The finely decorated dress is usually donated by a donor or made by the friars, while the Virgin's jewelry is donated by the government, the bishops, and also the common people.
Quiero platicar con mucho gusto, con mucha alegría.
It is with great joy that we wish to underscore the enthusiasm of this brotherhood. There are 75 of us in the monastery of Our Lady of Zapopan. Tomorrow, the statue of the Holy Mother, which since the 20th of May has visited over 400 parishes of Guadalajara, will be returning to its monastery. We friars, who have been looking after it for the past 478 years, are never tired of welcoming it and giving it all the attention we can. I think of the devotion of our faithful and do not know how to describe it. Their expressions of faith are so extraordinary that we friars remain there useless and poor. If we think of how much Guadalajara loves our Holy Mother of Zapopan. On the 12th of October in the morning, the walk begins from the cathedral, where the Virgin has remained on show all night, surrounded by the praying pilgrims, to the sanctuary of Zapopan. Hundreds of thousands of men and women accompany the statue with dances and songs. Dance is a form of prayer deeply rooted in the history of worship in Mexico. The native population prepared for pagan sacrifices with dance. During early evangelization, the Spaniards used dance to prepare to celebrate the sacrifice of Christ. In the pilgrimage, each Christian celebrates the joy of feeling a part of a multitude of brothers and sisters who together walk towards God who awaits them. With our spirituality and all the participation we are capable of, we are alongside those who pray in silence or sing, those who pray with joy, and those who pray with tears, because no one notices language, race, or economic condition when called upon to encounter in others the living face of Christ. In the beginning, when the order was founded, when the friars were few and the places had not yet been taken, St. Francis in his devotion went to St. James of Galicia.
La cosa per cui ringrazio il Signore è perché ogni giorno vedo Lui che passa.
I thank the Lord because every day I see Him pass by. I see Him who comes to stay with me in every pilgrim who arrives, tired by the walk. And I do nothing but give him or her a little refreshment.
Piccolo ristoro. Prima di tutto il cammino è un punto di incontro.
The walk is first of all a meeting point for many brothers and sisters.
È un luogo di fraternità.
It is therefore a place of brotherhood. It is a place of spirituality where every man, every woman seeks the essential reason of his or her life. A great quest inside themselves. And when they arrive, you see that each one of them really has a gift, a great gift for humanity. What we provide here is a place of peace, of brotherhood. Considering this is a Franciscan monastery, we cannot give anything else. We cannot provide anything else. A place in which to find spirituality and meet Jesus.
We try to offer the best we can, Franciscan hospitality. We have also created an area of spirituality with its heart right here in the chapel of the Oratory of the Santiago Brotherhood, opposite the crucifix of St. Damien, who for us is an emblem, a master of life. Every evening we meet with the pilgrims for a moment of spirituality, our prayer for peace. The pilgrim, after completing the walk, encounters him, herself, recovering the memory of his/her experience along the way. But above all, he, she is able to understand that life is a journey in which God, albeit in different ways, is always present. The arrival at the journey's end marks another departure. We've recognized ourselves as pilgrims and foreigners, and now, having acquired the sense of our traveling, we are strong in another freedom which we place at the disposal of our people, of our brotherhood, of the Church. Friars Minor, we do not live in a neutral space. We are steeped in our time. We learn the signs and contradictions, the practices of exclusion and the hopes. In our pastoral mission, we share the daily lives of men and women and bravely seek out new paths for new courses. We thank God for everything St. Francis has left in these 800 years, his spirituality, his life. We find ourselves in a region in which men and women live who came here during the war period, who have experienced hate, violence and the contempt of their friends, of those who, until the day before, were their neighbours. We want to help them so they can feel that those who chased them away, who destroyed their houses, are also God's children and deserve forgiveness and love. As Franciscans, we want to show this through facts and our pastoral activities, starting with the children, of whom we only see a part here. We testify to the children, the youngsters, and to the elderly, to everyone, that we really are God's children.
I love the words that the Jewish theologian Martin Buber once spoke. He said that the more people we include when we use the term we, the closer we are to God. And that's what we try to model here at St. Camillus. The more people we include when we say we, the closer we are to God and the more we can see the face of God. And so we try to live together and work together as a community of communities, understanding each other, sharing the richness of the traditions and the cultures of each community, and trying to be one, centered in our Lord Jesus Christ.
I guess to adapt to a new country, it's always difficult for newcomers, new immigrants. So the key for, at least for the French-speaking community, is to, once they get here, they realize that there's a home, you know, because once you have a place where you can go and celebrate Mass and where you can be involved, I think the social integration, the social aspect kind of takes care of itself. I think that's the challenge, and that's what we're trying to build.
Many arrive here without knowing where to go. We try and guide them, to help them straighten out their position as immigrants. Sometimes they have health problems, and when you don't have health insurance, it's a problem getting treatment here. Within the French-speaking community, we have a team that supports the immigrants and helps them find hospitals or doctors that offer treatment at lower prices. We go from home to home, from shop to shop, to bus stops, the streets, trying to build missions to help children, youngsters, adults, elderly people and former drug addicts, prostitutes, inmates. There are many in this parish. We are moving outside the walls of the parish to take our services into the streets.
I offer assistance by translating into English. Above all for the many mothers who are unable to communicate with the doctors or their children's teachers. I like doing it. I like encouraging them. I like to tell them, look, it's not all over. Come with us. The immigrants are passing through a very hard time, And it is among them that we must seek Jesus, seek that Father who wants to give us love, who wants to say to us, I am here, I love you, I protect you, whatever you are doing. I am here with you. The parish of San Camillus and the Franciscans have enabled us to find refuge, the warmth of a hearth, away from our countries. And I feel proud to be a part of this parish.
Recently, an elderly North American member of our parish came to me and said, you know, Father Larry, I went on vacation this summer, and while we were on vacation, we went to church. And while I was at church, I suddenly began to feel very uncomfortable. And I looked around the church, and I looked around at all the people who were there, and I noticed they're all white. And I said to myself, this isn't the church that Jesus would want. And I really felt so grateful inside that here was an elderly white woman who had internalized the message that we try to live here at St. Camillus, that God's church is a multicultural church, that we're all brothers and sisters in our Lord Jesus Christ, and we're called to be instruments of the gospel, instruments of peace to one another.
Francis was something new in the church of his time. Today, his charisma continues to make our service to the church creative. A service also expressed through the competent use of structures, social and cultural knowledge, and above all, of the new media.
Hablamos todo lo que es, primeramente, la iniciativa de
The approach to the world of communication took shape thanks above all to an initiative of the Franciscan Cardinal, Monsignor Bernardino Echeverría.
Es así como en Ambato se da el inicio a los medios de comunicación.
So it was that, in 1952, at Ambato, the broadcasting station PHAN was set up, the first radio to begin evangelization and try and reach all levels of listeners, above all, the poorer people, including through traditional music.
Música que está siempre ligada también a las tradiciones autóctonas de los pueblos. Yo creo que cada locutor, cada trabajador,
I believe every speaker, every communication media professional, anyone engaged in broadcasting can evangelize in the places in which he or she works, through the productions he or she creates.
Espacios y sus programas que lo tienen.
Continente americano, continente misionero, ha llegado ya la hora de renovar tu vocación. Hoy el mundo tiene hambre de más justicia y de verdad, y más allá de tus fronteras es el hambre de...
Estamos en una radio franciscana.
This is a Franciscan radio station in Ecuador, and we Franciscans believe we can spread the evangelical message through the radio in the same way it can be broadcast through television, internet, and all other media at disposal.
Esta radio es la más antigua del Ecuador.
This radio is the oldest in Ecuador. We have other radio stations in other places, and we use them to pray, to spread the Christian message, to communicate the word of the Lord, and at the same time broadcast news, sport, music for everyone. We believe that the gospel, the message of Jesus Christ, can also be broadcast using these wonderful means. It's a day of routine activity here at the Antoniano, though perhaps routine is not quite the right word. We're trying to organize a TV show, like so many others that have been staged in the Antoniano Production Center of Bologna. And it's the spirit of Francis of Assisi that has prompted us and enabled us to live this experience, born from the depth of our being, a brotherhood. In Bologna, the charity of the friars of the monastery has never gone missing. In the war years, it was the ration of black bread passing from one hand to another, then the distribution of soup in rain or snow, summer or winter, until the project took shape conceived by a young friar, Ernesto Caroli, in a concentration camp. An equipped canteen to properly serve the poor, and a cinema able to earn enough to keep it going. Thus it was that in 1954, the Antoniano was set up. And by declining Franciscan charity into different forms, the friars also developed the idea of using new communication media as an expression of their evangelizing vocation and implemented it in the following years. Today, the Antoniano Production Center is truly a unique facility in terms of the high standards of its resources. As Francis inspired us and has inspired our history, so he has also inspired our daily work, something we believe must always be done thoroughly and well. And here we work above all for the children and the poor, as well as for the world of communication as a whole, a world that also requires our participation. Then he moved to the locality called Porziuncola. One day a passage of the Gospel was being read concerning the apostles' appointment to preach. The saint, who had only grasped the general sense after the Mass, asked the priest to explain what had been read. The priest commented it point by point, and Francis, on hearing that the disciples of Christ must possess neither gold, silver, money, nor carry a bag, bread or stick, nor wear shoes or tunics, but only preach the kingdom of God and penance, straightway filled with the Holy Spirit exclaimed, "This I want, this I ask, and this I desire to do with all my heart." Evangelization is a profound expression of our Christian vocation. We are by nature a brotherhood in mission, because the announcement of the good tidings to all human beings coincides with our very identity of life. Then Francis gathered them all together. He split them into 4 groups of 2 each and said to them, "Go, dear brothers, 2 by 2 to the various parts of the world and announce to all peace and penance in the remission of sins." Following Francis, pilgrims and strangers in this world, with poverty as the natural condition of life, for 800 years, the Friars Minor have continued to go to all continents and to all cultures.
Ci troviamo
We're in Marrakesh, a city in the south of Morocco. Franciscan friars were baptized as an order here. While we can say that the Friars Minor were born in Assisi, we can say that they received the baptism here in Morocco, with the 5 first martyrs of the order. According to tradition, when St. Francis heard news of the first martyrs, he said, "I can rest assured that I have had 5 true Friars Minor." We Friars Minor of the Holy Land have always been here. The first to come was St. Francis himself, and from that time on, the Franciscans, the Friars Minor, have always remained here in the Holy Land. The 8 centuries of presence of the Friars Minor in the Holy Land have not only been restricted to looking after the holy places, but have also involved supporting the local communities in a number of different ways.
Accanto ai santuari,
alongside the sanctuaries, they create the parishes, the living stones that give life to the holy places. Together with the parishes, they have, let us say, tried to give a chance to the Christians, enable them to live here in the Holy Land in very hard conditions. To do this, they have followed 3 simple ways. The first is to create jobs. The second aspect and method to enable the Christians to survive has been education. And so they created the first schools, the first in Bethlehem in 1523, a little school. Today, about 20,000 students are taught in 17 schools of the custody of all orders and levels distributed in Palestine, Israel, Jordan, the Lebanon, Cyprus and Argentina. Little by little, the schools have taken their place in society and also embrace non-Christian students, including Muslims, Druzes, Jews, teachers from all religions. In our schools, we accept all children, including the poor, especially the poor. The third way used by the Franciscans to preserve Christianity is by building houses. This is rather strange, even for the Franciscans, but the friars have done it, motivated and also virtually obliged for a concrete reason. Saladin, when he took Jerusalem after the Crusades, declared all the Holy Land as a Muslim place. It cannot, therefore, be sold to anyone who is not a Muslim. Various apartments are being built at Jaffa and Nazareth. Others have already been built at Beit Anina, Bethlehem and Betfage. When they can, the families pay a symbolic rent. From the very beginning, St. Francis modelled our style here in the Holy Land. A simple style, that of poor people, meaning always in contact with the simple people, but always with brotherly dialogue, sometimes dialectic, but always brotherly and free towards the Islamic majority, and today the Jews as well. Interpreting the signs of the times in the light of the Gospel, we're engaged in tackling the great emergencies of our age, the new ministries, the new ecclesiastical and social needs.
Como franciscano também, me sinto aqui repetindo.
As a Franciscan, it is as if I were repeating here the same steps, the desires, the dreams of Francis of Assisi, who so loved to live among the simple people, amid nature, rivers, animals, birds, entire creation. Living here among the Indians is to constantly live the most beautiful aspects of my Franciscan vocation.
Eu te batizo em nome do Pai, do Filho, do Espírito Santo.
My dream is that, even when on this land, only my footprints and those of the friars who live here today remain. The children and grandchildren of this people will continue to live in a free land, in a good land, with forests, animals, water and pure air. Because for the Indian, the land and nature are life. If they take the land away from the Indian dies. Consequently, my dream is that when I die, and I shall certainly die, this land will continue to be good, preserved, so that others, the future generations, continue our history. Because we pass away quickly, but those to come are entitled to a better world than ours. And we friars, who today live here in the Amazon amid devastation and destruction, must make sure the land is left in the hands of the children of the earth. The Lord sent you across the whole world that you might testify His voice with words and deeds. In the last few years, the mission ad gentes, the preaching of the gospel in those places where it has still not arrived, is also expressed through missions of the order, in which friars of different origin take part, and who give life to international and intercultural fraternities.
I believe we are doing like St. Francis 800 years ago. St. Francis had the courage to go down for his inner horse, to embrace the lepers. I should restart my daily life here. I need to go down from my inner horse to embrace Jesus in the lepers. Here, our reality, we don't have lepers people, but we have AIDS patients. Our house for the last stage. And then in Thailand, we are here too, because we believe our Catholic Church should do the dialogue interreligious in this country. But I mean, through the patients, we can make our dialogue interreligious. We can respect them. We can pray like they pray. They like to speak about the merciful God, to pray to merciful God. And then I can say in their language, metatam, prachau hai metatam, prachau hai metatam. God will give you strength, you give you mercy to forgive you, to go, to bring you to heaven. Because they are at the last stage, and then we are preparing them to go, really, to go.
Il bisogno concreto nel mio caso è stato l'incontro insieme ad altre persone.
The real need, in my case, was when I came face to face with the reality of the abandoned infants, orphans, children who live on the street, and so on. And from there, almost from a joke or a mutual witty remark, a project was founded, and we began to host the children temporarily, which then became full-time. We then began to welcome others, and we expanded to the handicapped. Currently, we look after families at risk with problems of alcoholism and children living on the street. This is also a way of satisfying needs while meeting people. The monumental complex of San Francisco in Lima is a major sign of the evangelizing work done by the Friars Minor in Latin America and of their participation in Hispanic American culture through the centuries.
El conjunto monumental San Francisco
The St. Francis Monumental Complex is of great importance for Lima, for Peru, and for the world, and it has become a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's an important place from a spiritual viewpoint because this is where the first missionaries came, the first friars who left for the different regions of Peru. From here, after being trained, they left for their missions, while others stayed in the monastery to pray. There are various examples of saintly lives in these monasteries, such as, for instance, St. Francis Solano, who lived here as a saint after an intense life as a missionary in various parts of South America. One of the most important parts of this monastery is the library, where we are at the moment. It contains 25,000 books, books on different subjects and in different languages. We have books on theology, philosophy, canon law, ecclesiastical law, history, treatises on medicine. At the moment, the friars are engaged in promoting the visits of schools and universities. Many people come to see this place. People of all cultures, of all races, of all religions, of all ages. People who remain spellbound in front of all the beauty we have here. One of the main attractions is the catacombs, but for us, they are also a motive of reflection on the meaning of death, on what it means to pass out of this life and into the other. In support of the needs of the mission brotherhoods, but also of the provinces and custodies that suffer financial hardships, various organizations have been set up which, at regional or general level, concretely express the solidarity of the order.
Mission Centrale de Franciscana was established in 1969 by the Franciscans of Central Europe. From this region, in the past 150 years, many missionaries have departed, inspired by the life of St. Francis.
Sein Leben bestand ja hauptsächlich aus Begegnungen.
A life full of encounters. We have taken 3 as models. The first is Francis meeting the gospel. We friars wish to live and testify in a credible way in the words and deeds of this gospel. The second, Francis who meets the leper, meaning solidarity towards those in need. And finally, Francis who meets the Sultan, meaning willingness to talk and recognize others.
10 cents am Tag für Menschen in Not. Mit diesem Slogan
10 cents a day for those in difficulty. With this slogan, Mission Centrale de Franciscana promotes solidarity actions throughout the world. With over 600 projects, we help people to improve their conditions of life. And this has been going on for the past 40 years almost. Over 150,000 German people have joined our solidarity campaigns. To all our benefactors, we send our missionary newsletter every 2 months to tell them about the projects underway and the requests for help from poor countries. This newsletter is also a way of creating a dialogue with our donors and fostering among them an awareness of Franciscan spirituality. In October 2004, in cooperation with VR Bank Untertaunus and at the initiative of Mission Centrale de Franciscana, the Bank for the Order and the Mission was founded that permits private individuals and public institutions to invest with ethical purposes. Nature, culture and social sustainability are the main fields of investment.
Mission Centrale de
Franciscana supports projects throughout the world, in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia and also in Eastern Europe. With each project, we wish to contribute to improving the living conditions of poor and emarginated families so that they are able to lead dignified lives. We can split the projects into 3 sectors. Social projects, aimed at the omni-comprehensive development of human beings, pastoral projects of evangelization and promotion of local communities and churches, and finally, Franciscan projects in support of Franciscan nuns and friars.
The Franciscan nuns and friars in Africa live in close contact with the population in villages and cities. They are acquainted with the daily problems of the people and together with them can study the solutions for improving living conditions. We at Mission Centrale help them by sending donations which reach the nuns and friars directly where they are and make it possible for them to complete the planned projects together with the local populations.
The first message which Francis received from the Lord was, "Francis, go repair my church." This, for me, is the Franciscan ideal. To answer the appeal which the Lord made to St. Francis. There are various ways. The way of being a missionary, the way of helping the missionary so he or she becomes an instrument, and there's the way we have chosen here, to collect funds, to put together the material to give to the missionary. I have been directing this initiative for the past 38 years. In 1971, Father General Konstantin Kozer sent me to the USA to start collecting funds for the Franciscan missions throughout the world. At that time, the initiative had not taken shape. There was just a name, a machine, and the will to do good work. I was 30 years old at the time, and for me it was a new experience, a new life. The work we did in that period, we are now able to do in one day, because we are now able to send off 35,000 letters a day. When a visitor or a friend comes to visit, he finds working religious personnel, men and women that sacrifice themselves and generously donate their lives for the service of others. A gesture of authenticity and of honesty. The idea is to share in the work done by those in the front line. We are the rear guard. We obtain the material so they can build. It is a common endeavor, a real Franciscan family enterprise. All praise to you, my Lord, with all your creatures, and first for Brother Sun, who is the day, and through whom you give us light. And he is beautiful and radiant, with great splendor, and bears an image of you, Most High. Men of our time, we are in the world aware of its beauty, but also of our responsibility as its guardians. In the wake of a new humanism, living poverty and simplicity as a form of freedom and independence, we work for the promotion of justice, peace, and the safeguarding of the world. All praise to you, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars. You formed them clear and precious and beautiful. Can a night that is too dark be filled with light again? Can the victim and the oppressor sit at the same table? In South Africa, the long season of mistrust and suspicion, of hate and violence that started in 1984 and lasted until the first democratic elections, called for differences to be healed and for dialogue as the basis for a new start for everyone. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission began that dialogue between victim and tormentor, a very slow and painful process for thousands of men and women and for the Church of South Africa. A difficult but indispensable path for us friars too, called upon to review our vocation in the light of forgiveness and welcome, to give ourselves and others, different from us, living space in a common future. All praise to you, my Lord, through brother wind, and through the air, cloudy and serene, and every kind of weather, through which you give life to your creatures. We sow using small trays, so the seeds can quickly develop strong stalks. We use containers like these, in which we carefully distribute fertile mud. The correct way is to allow it to settle for one night, so the mud becomes compact and releases water on the surface, which we then throw away. We arrange the shoots so the grains of rice are not too close to one another. When they are grown, 10 days after sowing, we transfer the plants to the paddy field. This way, we manage to produce good rice. If the land is fertile, 30 stalks can grow from one seed. All praise to you, my Lord, through Sister Water, who is very useful and humble and precious and chaste. As disciples of St. Francis of Assisi, we work in Indonesia to produce a cosmic spirituality that respects all God's creation.
Dan dalam gagasan besar ini, kami mencoba untuk
the Franciscan eco-pastoral expresses itself above all in the defense of the rights of the rural communities, because Indonesian social policies often fail to take into consideration the farmers of the provinces. To be constantly alongside them, we try and realize a pastoral work that starts with agriculture. We support the organic farming movement. We prompt the farmers to be aware of their condition in order to constantly safeguard the environment in which they live, on which future life depends. All praise to you, my Lord, through Brother Fire, through whom you light the night. And he is beautiful and joyous and robust and strong.
Sisa-sisa dapur.
We produce organic compost. We have collected cooking waste, peels, vegetables, even paper, which decomposes. Plastic is inorganic. It is separated. We combine it all together with straw, so we assemble everything in tidy layers, wetted with microorganisms that are produced by the food waste. This way, the decomposition process is fast. We cover it all with a fabric cover. After 2 weeks, this pile has already become compost. We put it in a bag with our hands. This is easy because the bacteria are odorless and not yet unpleasant. All praise to you, my Lord, through our sister mother, Earth, who sustains and governs us, and who brings forth varied fruits with coloured flowers and herbs. 700 farmers already work together thanks to eco-pastoral. Ecology also enters schools to become a subject of study, so the children are able to acquire ecological awareness, so that protecting nature becomes natural to them, so that they are able to fight for the rights of God's creation, against acts of destruction and marginalization, so environmental themes are part of the fight for their lives. All praise to you, my Lord, through those who pardon through your love and bear sickness and tribulation. It was a traumatic experience for me, a personal trauma, to be frank, an inner trauma that I did not understand right away. I couldn't understand how people who had lived together for years, people that I had taught myself, people with whom I'd shared so much, people who had also shared so much together, the Hutu and Tutsi, one day took up machetes and started to exterminate an ethnic group. No, it was not only genocide, it was slaughter. Blessed are those who endure in peace, for by you, Most High, they will be crowned. I was optimistic, even when I saw people slaughtering each other, when I saw an ethnic group disappearing, when I saw corpses passing by on the river. I was optimistic because I am Christian, and I always think that the Lord will help us find a way. And today, I am optimistic for Rwanda. All praise to you, my Lord, through Sister Death, from whose embrace no mortal can escape. Woe to those who die in mortal sin. Happy those she finds doing your will. The second death can do no harm to them. This morning, we received the news that yesterday, in Kigali, in Rwanda, a missionary of the Order of the Friars Minor was killed. Father Vieco Kuric from Croatia. Another victim is added to the long list of missionaries who, with the sacrifice of their lives, preserved their love for Christ and the African people. He wished to enter the Egyptian Sultan's camp, intrepid and armed only with the shield of faith. To the Saracens, who had captured him along the way, he kept repeating, "I am a Christian. Take me to your Lord."
Francisco es un hombre que ha apostado fuertemente por el diálogo.
Francis is a man who has waged everything on dialogue. The gesture he made in 1219, when he went to Syria to speak openly with the Sultan, is a deeply prophetic gesture, but one that stems from Francis's deep conviction that dialogue brings hearts closer, even when ideas differ. And he is a man deeply convinced of the need to build peace. That is why Francis had no doubts about asking the mayor and the bishop of Assisi to make peace, because he believes in peace. All these aspects make Francis a very modern man, even outside the Catholic Church, because the gospel knows no boundaries.
Definitivamente la historia de los franciscanos.
We've been in Morocco since 1219, when the first Franciscans were sent here by St. Francis himself and were put to death the following year in 1220. In 1227, there were another 7 martyrs, the martyrs of Ceuta. After these Franciscans, others came. It is a long story, rich in experiences and encounters, not only for the Franciscans themselves, but also for the people of Morocco. We are not here to convert, but to be converted. We are not here to evangelize, but to be evangelized. We are not here to form a group unto itself, but to respect others. Respect, dialogue, and friendship are three founding aspects of our presence here in Morocco.
Creo que uno de los proyectos más interesantes que tenemos un poco entre manos y que
One of the most interesting and perhaps the most ambitious projects on which we are currently working here in northern Morocco is the opening of a new cultural centre to better cater for the needs of the people. A centre able to concretely combat the scourge of illiteracy, able to offer above all young people the chance to acquire training and later on find a job or study and improve their education. Here in Tangiers, we already have a documentation centre and a library. We should also like to set up a centre for inter-religious dialogue and Islamic Christian research.
Una especie de centro de diálogo interreligioso y de investigación islamo-cristiana a raíz un poco también de la demanda de la gente.
To provide a service to the many people who come here to carry out research, study, acquire more in-depth information on the history of the Church and the Franciscans in northern Morocco, and also find an answer to their questions on Christianity. It's a very important challenge for us. We want to be prepared and ready to start the dialogue, a dialogue that originates in a natural way, including, as a result of the questions, the needs for the people who approach us. In the verses of the Quran, the Muslim holy book, we are several times reminded, be the memory of God. With our work, we demonstrate the common will of the Church as a whole to be a community, the living expression of the presence of Jesus at the service of the country, and not to offer alms to the Christians abroad. St. Irenaeus says, where there is the Spirit, there is the Church, but also where there is the Church, there is the Spirit. Well, here the presence and action of the Spirit are manifest in each of these persons.
I worked in Malaysia in a parish which is called St. Anne's Parish, and now I'm doing a course on interreligious dialogue in Australia, in Melbourne, where I will be finishing next month. And when we talk about this Francis message for Muslims, it is a message that is where he talk about living with them or being dialogue with them. And when talk about the meeting between Francis and the Sultan, it is very significant today because when Francis met Sultan during that time was a time where there is a great hatred between Muslims and Christians. But Francis meeting with the Sultan changes the situation or the way that we look. And that situation or that meeting is help us to be closer to people of different faith in present time.
The Franciscan and therefore missionary presence in a Muslim country makes sense, first of all, because for us Franciscans, for us Christians, it is the answer to the Lord Jesus' invitation to take the good tidings to the whole world. to bear his message, which is a message of salvation, not only for us in Italy, but for all those who already have a religion. And that is why we are on our mission. That is why, in my case, I've been in Somalia since 1978 and now in Djibouti since 2001.
In March 2002, the Franciscan Center for Dialogue in Kidapawan was formally set up, and since then, the priors in charge of the center continue to facilitate the implementation of formative and educative program activities and projects using interreligious dialogue as relevant evangelizing component or mechanism to promote a culture of peace in Mindanao. Dialogue in Mindanao is most relevant because of tri-people presence. Tri-people presence means the Lumad, indigenous peoples, the Muslims, and the Christian settlers from Luzon and Visayas. There was a rich cultural exchange as various tribes intermingle with one another. And that's why the challenge for us, OFM Franciscans in Mindanao, is to rediscover and recover positive elements of the Mindanaoan community before, community of the past, and use them as foundation for building the elusive peace in Mindanao. And we are further challenged also as OFM Franciscans to manifest the gospel and Franciscan values among the tri-people through loving acceptance and appreciation of each other's cultural and religious diversity.
And enlivened by the spirit of the divine scripture are those who everything they know and want to know do not attribute to their body, but by word and example give it to the Lord on high, to whom all things belong. From the grace of the beginnings to the present, our vocation to live and testify the gospel also expresses itself in study as an exercise of humanity, faith, the quest for God, and in an intellectual activity at the service of dialogue and encounter with cultures. Our order runs 14 universities and 32 study centers worldwide, including the Antonianum of Rome, which bears the title of a pontifical university, and where both the Scotistic Commission and the Pontifical International Marian Academy have their seat. Also in Rome is the San Bonaventura International College, the Franciscan publishers of Quaracchi. The Antonianum Papal University is located in Rome, which is, so to speak, the center of the Catholic Church, and thus expresses the universality of church and faith. This corresponds to the vocation of the Franciscan spirit. From the very beginning, the Franciscan spirit has always been a universal spirit which addresses the world. Within this universal outlook, the Antonianum University has the aim of conveying the theological, spiritual, philosophical, but also pedagogical thought of Franciscan tradition into different cultures. The Antonianum University is a young university, established 4 years ago, and which succeeded an earlier institution. At present, it has 4 faculties, 3 of which in Rome: philosophy, theology, canon law and biblical theology, biblical research, biblical exegesis, and biblical archaeology in Jerusalem. The role of the Antonianum within the order is to prepare friars at an academic level and at intellectual, practical level for the services they will perform and for their provinces. There are a lot of ecclesiastical institutes in Rome, but within this large offer, I believe the Antonianum University, starting with its own tradition, can provide an alternative which, starting with traditional Franciscan thought, can be and must be made concrete and updated with respect to the challenges of our times. The International Franciscan Study Centre was set up in Canterbury in 1974, 750 years after the arrival of the first friars in England, and on the site where they built their first monastery. It's a study and training centre with a specific Franciscan emphasis, common to the English provinces of the Friars Minor, Capuchins and Conventual Franciscans. Attended by students of all nationalities, it's renowned throughout the world for its academic excellence.
My memories here in the Franciscan International Study Center is quite meaningful, I would say, because besides it's an international community, I was able to experience different cultures and different, listening to different experiences of the sisters and brothers in this institution. And it's really a family spirit, so to say, that I really cherish when I'm living.
The International Franciscan Study Centre is also an ecumenical place of encounter and sharing with the Anglican Franciscans.
5 years ago, refound our house in Canterbury for a couple of reasons. One of them was to be in Canterbury, but one of the others was to be able to use the Franciscan Study Centre and the ecumenical chances it gave us there. We've made very good friends there, and I think we work very well together. And some of our brothers study up there, but we're greatly privileged in being able to use the chapel here in Greyfriars, which was the first Franciscan monastery in Britain. One of our great delights is being able to host many groups and many Roman Catholic Franciscan groups.
The Franciscan Bible Study, academically configured as Faculty of Biblical and Archaeological Sciences, is the major cultural expression of the custody of the Holy Land. Founded in the early 20th century, it was officially recognized in 1924. Its activities include, besides ordinary upgrade teaching courses, excavation campaigns, restoration schools, and a fairly large series of scientific and popular publications on biblical and archaeological subjects. The Biblical Study Museum of the Flagellation is an institution of the Holy Land custody, built a little at a time. It contains particular collections. The first were completed by the Franciscans of the custody in a random way. After this rather amateur start, the Bible School was set up, and since then, the museum has specialized in the search for preservation and restoration of archaeological artifacts. Hence the encounter of the two tasks currently undertaken by the custody of the Holy Land: to obtain the recovery of the sanctuaries, to present them for the worship of the pilgrims, and to study them from a historical, archaeological, and biblical viewpoint. Here are the professors of the study who have contributed to the greatest extent to the excavations of the sanctuaries, to some extent the founding fathers. Father Silvestre Sala and Father Bellarmino Bagatti, who worked in the 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s, and Father Virgilio Corbo, who excavated the Herodium, the Mount of Olives, Gethsemane, Capharnaum, Magdala. Starting in the 1950s in particular, the museum has become an integral part of the study, consisting of classrooms for the students, library for scholarly research, and the museum itself, as an instrument of preservation but also study. It is also of great interest to pilgrims because, in just a small space, in just a short time, the main artifacts found in recent years during the recovery and restoration of the various sanctuaries can be seen. The San Bonaventura University was established in 1708 and has been carrying on its evangelizing work for the last 300 years. Ours is a broad and diversified mission, but always distinguished by an anthropological approach: what human beings are and what they must be. Our mission is to train youngsters to contribute, through evangelical values, to ensure that in a context of institutionalized injustice, of daily violence, including within families, of serious failings, including at state level, it really becomes possible to serve society in the evangelical spirit. This university, besides the Bogotá location, also has detached facilities at Cali, Medellín, and Cartagena.
Nuestras universidades siempre están guiadas.
Our universities have always been run by Franciscans. The Franciscan friar will always be our point of reference, including in our profession as university lecturers.
Para nosotros,
according to its statute, the San Bonaventura University is not just a place in which to acquire knowledge, but a school of life. The friars train the students above all as people with great intellectual skills, with great technological abilities, with a great command of knowledge, who know how to choose what to study, who have no problem relating within the university and in the world that awaits them outside.
La persona que pueda, con una gran riqueza intelectual, una gran riqueza técnica, una gran riqueza profesional, con gran dominio de sus temas, de lo que deseó estudiar, cuando esté en el mundo con las demás personas o aquí mismo en la universidad, le sea fácil relacionarse, le sea fácil llegar al otro. Y eso no solamente se consigue mediante lo estrictamente técnico.
The intellectual endeavours of the Friars Minor, their research and study activities, cannot be separated from a pastoral educational mission dedicated above all to those who live in conditions of great economic, social and cultural poverty.
Esta es mi casa, ¿no? Y vivo con mi papá y mamá. Este lugar de Huaycán.
This is my house. I live here with my father and mother. What you see is the locality of Huaycán, where before there was nothing. Only stones. My school is surrounded by greenery and is beautiful. Here they teach us many things. Things we pupils can teach our parents, who are unable to go to school. I should like to become a lawyer, so I can support my family and enable my younger brothers and sisters to go to school. Thanks to their support, the friars make us feel protected. They teach us many things: mutual respect, respect for the elderly, for the poor, for the needy, for the street children.
Trabajamos con niños en extrema pobreza, pero con muchas esperanzas.
We work with very poor children, but who have great potential. That is why Huaycán is also called the City of Hope. We have an average of 800 pupils, and we consider training and education as two major missions entrusted to us by the Lord. We do not only teach the children, we also work to improve the quality of their lives, and to ensure that one day they can guide and help their community to progress. The community is in need of many things, but has plenty of confidence and hope for its younger citizens, our pupils, our teachers, the education community, the Brotherhood of the Friars Minor have an ideal: to turn this desert into an oasis.
Tenemos como ideal hacer de este desierto un oasis.
The John 23rd College accepts and realizes the invitation of our Father Francis to be missionaries in the world. The college not only takes up the great challenge of intercultural action, but also the challenge of being missionaries and disciples in new places, in new cultural contexts, and above all, with new responsibilities. We currently have an exchange program underway between Peruvian families and families of Chinese origin. This is more than a purely cultural exchange. It's also an exchange of ideas, an exchange that involves everything that could help enrich our culture.
I have experimented various workshops. I have learnt to change a light bulb, to bake cakes and biscuits. I have learnt to stitch and mend. And I think this helps me grow. After leaving school, I'll be able to find a job that enables me to put into practice what I have learnt to do here, and I shall be able to upgrade my living conditions.
Estamos acompañando a este pueblo que ha sido castigado por el
We are sharing the progress of a people that has suffered because of terrorism. We promote the values of life, the hope of escaping poverty. We friars try and live with these men and women, to share in their daily existence and to strengthen our brotherly relations, in accordance with what our Father Francis taught us. Educating towards peace is the fundamental value of the University of San Francisco. Ours is community work, aimed at asserting the principle of the Franciscan mission, to be in relation with the community. Research, teaching and university are thus at the service of the community. At the same time, our pastoral action wishes to represent a guide for training our university students.
Onde construímos casas, habitações populares para essa população. No mais, o nosso trabalho pastoral cerca e resume, finalmente, a nossa ação direta, a nossa palavra franciscana para com a formação dos nossos estudantes universitários.
Ever since it was first established in 1999, the International Franciscan Library of Assisi has had the sole purpose of serving all those who, from all over the world, are interested in learning about and extending the Franciscan experience in its totality. The library performs ongoing activities focused on researching and collecting books on Franciscanism published in all languages and countries, availing itself of the support of the EFRA Association, which, since 1996, has brought together Franciscan publishers from every corner of the world. The library currently has over 3,000 books from 1,300 publishing companies written in 23 different languages. The International Franciscan Library is the clear sign of the unity of the Franciscan family. Here, friars minor, Capuchins, conventual Franciscans and third-order regular friars convene to discuss history, spirituality and Franciscan philosophy, to suggest new texts and, above all, to bear witness to the ongoing presence of Francis in the world. And wherever the friars are and will be, they must respect and honor one another spiritually and lovingly. Brotherhood is the good tidings which a friar minor can and must announce to this world, to this society. Above all, when we take into account that the brotherhood is not only made up of friends, and even less so, of blood relations. The brotherhood is made up of brothers given to us by the Lord as a gift. Brothers very different from us. Different in terms of age. Different in terms of background. Different in terms of character, but all united by faith, which gives us the certainty that we are all children of the same God, the Father. And therefore, if we are all children, we are all brothers. And if we are convinced that God cannot give bad things to those he loves, how can we refuse a brother who is a gift of God? Brotherhood is a deeply identifying dimension in our form of life. It's not simply life together, it's a communion of life. Only a brotherhood that is spiritually alive, which every day experiments within a path of communion, can become a brotherhood open onto and ready to welcome those from outside.
The Three Companions Youth Vocation Center is part of the parish of the Assumption of the Holy Virgin Mary of Poland of Oszowie-Klimczowce. Our work mainly involves accompanying the young people in their life's journey and daily travels in the world. By means of prayer days, retreats, group excursions and training courses, we present an adventure in the spirit of St. Francis and St. Clare of Assisi. We cannot complain about numbers. Many young people are fascinated by Jesus Christ, who they encounter through Francis and Clare. This spirit is at the bottom of our adventure, so our youngsters can rediscover the beauty of the world, appreciate the value of life, but above all, enjoy their youth and make the best possible decisions.
The Franciscan community enables me to grow. It teaches me to pray and improve my relationship with God. The friars of the Three Companions Center show me how to live according to the Gospel, like St. Francis. Their lives are an example of virtues like peace, goodness, brotherhood, and they teach us to live the same way.
Building brotherhood, managing to communicate it, means creating bonds, fueling the spirit with participation, strengthening a sense of belonging. The brotherhood is a gift, just as each brother is a gift, but also a duty and a challenge.
Our
proposal is based above all on presence and relationship. We invite young people to take part in the community. Besides living our faith together, we pray together, we work together, we spend time together during days of spiritual retreat. The heart of our being together is communion in brotherhood, simplicity. The youngsters have the chance to see how the friars minor live and how they serve modern man. We also perform vocational accompanying activities, and thanks to this, many youngsters choose the Franciscan life, in the order of the friars minor or in the female Franciscan congregations. I have been attending the Vocational Center for Youngsters for a couple of years now. I like the Franciscans, their spontaneousness, their sense of humor, and above all, the fact that they help each of us and provide spiritual accompaniment with days of in-depth discussion, retreat, and vocational paths, which I too have undertaken. Francis was a man who experienced the love of God, a man who lived the experience of forgiveness and compassion, and was thus transformed into a messenger of forgiveness, compassion, and reconciliation. This is what originated the request, at that time totally original and inconceivable, for the forgiveness of Assisi, the request for the indulgence of the porziuncola. Just as Francis encountered loving God and experienced the loving God in his life, so he asked that all of us might experience the same encounter and take part in this experience that changes life. For the marchers, reaching the porziuncola is not only reaching our destination. It is more than just 10 days of walking. It's something that leaves its mark inside you. There you truly experience the forgiveness of Christ. At least that is how it was for me. And it's something that leaves its mark not only in that moment, but in your future life. It's something that truly leaves its mark.
From the Franciscan March, I first of all expect a wonderful chance to meditate better, to escape, so to speak, the chaos of daily living that surrounds us every day. Meditating is a little like rediscovering oneself, being able to think and at the same time live a wonderful experience in a community. I did not know the friars before joining the Franciscan March. When I first started, I said, I'm in the wrong place. Then, however, I got to know the people better and stayed. And I must say that to some extent, no, to a big extent, it changed my life. Living for 10 days, 24 hours a day, with the friars and the nuns who accompanied us. They had to live their spirituality with us marchers. And thus you ask yourself that extra question, the question which in my case moved something. And despite initial skepticism, for me it was the start of a journey, and reliving it is rather like answering that giant gift I received from the march, and from the march onwards.
È una storia molto strana, non so cosa sta accadendo. Lui, Francesco, nostro amico, sta cambiando il nostro mondo. Quella gioia che cerchiamo, la ricerchiamo.
Those friars to whom the Lord has granted the favor of work, let them work with faithfulness and devotion. "350 kilometers from Ho Chi Minh City, a city of 6 million inhabitants, Dalat, at an altitude of 1,400 meters, surrounded by the peace and quiet of a centuries-old landscape and an archaic farming culture. Here, the community of the Friars Minor supports itself in the favor of work with a modern flower-growing center. We are in the sterile workshop of the SINH nursery, set up in 1991. When it was founded, 10 people worked here. Today, there are 50, mostly women. The center gives regular work to men and women without an income. It has produced many plant varieties to cater for market demands and helps upgrade and protect the environment.
First of all, the objects to be used in the workshop have to be carefully prepared, i.e. test tubes and glass containers. They have to be washed well to eliminate any harmful substances in a steam bath at 100 degrees centigrade. Then the liquid environment has to be prepared using pure water. The water has to be cleansed of the harmful substances that could be detrimental to the plant reproduction process and has to be enriched with chemical nutrients and vitamins.
In a country in which drinking water is not a guaranteed right, where water is potentially infected by viruses, bacteria and chemical substances, and frequently carries cholera epidemics, the Friars have studied a system for making it suitable for their work and a truly common asset. The Franciscan Flower Farm, besides providing a salary and social contributions to the workers, also caters for 60% of the needs of the Brotherhood and novices. The same novices are engaged in flower growing and, for about 3 hours a day, grow vegetables for the community and flowers and orchids for sale, thus making themselves economically independent. The Brotherhood is the gospel, according to which God continues to love us because He continues to be a father, and that is why we are brothers. Brotherhood then goes beyond living all together, much further beyond community life, although this is necessary. Above all, brotherhood has to do with faith, which, I repeat, enables me to see others as a gift of God and has a lot to do with the heart, which enables me to accept others like brothers, albeit different from me. Each single friar is a cornerstone for the provincial brotherhood, but also for the universal brotherhood. The elderly and ill become the living icons of divine faithfulness. In a society of many, too many words, they remind us that the word given one day by the grace and mercy of God is still there. They have answered and continue to answer what the Lord asked of them. When we became friars, we gave words and are therefore faithful to the word given, faithful to judgments, faithful to our life, because our word corresponds to life. So one is faithful to the word, is faithful to the life given for the order of St. Francis. Why are we born if we have to die? And why do I have to die when I would like to live? And why do I want to live if I don't understand what life is worth? These are three formidable questions. But there is an answer. Just one word. To be resurrected. To enjoy the same life of God. And this is beautiful. And so we must also think about death, about getting old. I can say old age now, but not for me. I do not feel old. I have never felt old. I do not want to hear this word, old. It's the same thing, but sounds bad. Better, elderly.
Where there is love and wisdom, there